Dr. Power, your guests have arrived.
Oh, thank you, Bonnycastle. Hi, folks. Come on in. Welcome to video number 4. I guess we're at the end of this session. We're halfway through on the downhill side. And so we're moving along nicely. I think by now I get a sense that the course is settling in. You're getting a certain rhythm as to how it should be operating. I think the tension level, the fear level, I think is going down of a little more latitude to go left and right in the course. And I'm getting a sense that's starting to happen. So hope you're having fun with the course and enjoying it. Marking papers, I'm working hard on those, but with my day job and keeping up with you folks on wonderful sets of discussions. My sense will be that certainly this weekend I'll have them back to you, but it may take some time into the weekend before I wrap them up, and then I'll send them out to you. I apologize, some of them, there's a little bit of boilerplate in some of them because it has to be that way because of the volume of just trying to keep up, but I'm sure you'll find the feedback meaningful and helpful to you as you move forward in the assignments, so that should be all right. I want to speak a bit about the Sleeman case is coming up in the week that's coming up. And in the Sleeman case, the same routine. It's just a practice case like the Robin Hood case. Discuss it with your colleagues, make some paper notes. What models would you use? What tools? What questions didn't I ask? I've given you some questions. What other questions might be of interest out of the Sleeman case that you want to have a dialogue with your colleagues about? I'll never see your notes. That's entirely up to you as you go through it as to what notes you take. But on the Friday night, I'll post on the site my thoughts, and indeed I've added some additional thoughts of some other things that happen in Sleeman's that I just thought for the sake of interest have a look at. I would not expect your report or your findings to be anywhere near what I'll give you on Friday night, but I thought for interest purposes you may enjoy looking at that and some of the models that'll provide you then to have a look at. And you don't have to look at them on Friday night. For those folks working on the weekend, open it at your pleasure whenever you're able to do so. Have a scan in there and then get the decks cleared for the following Monday. What else is on my mind? Yeah, we finished session 3 this week. We finished session 3, and it was all about the process. And as to say, processes can be reduced to basically an input, a black box where something happens, an output, and some feedback. And all processes, all planning things of that nature can be reduced to those 4 little elements. And you do add-on, layer-ons, and extra boxes. But in essence, you're just saying, give me some input, do something with it, think about it, and give me some outputs, and give me some feedback mechanism to tweak the system a little bit. And so that's what session 3 was all about. I'm going to suggest to you, for those that are involved in strategy and may even be doing something at your place of work today, there's nothing wrong with you jumping ahead to the last session, session 8, and there I provide you the waterfall method, a system I use in crafting strategy, and recently I used them with the Calgary Boys and Girls Club quite successfully as the template. It's an iterative process, but to keep you on track right straight down to the action plans with start dates and report dates and end dates. And I think you might find that helpful if you want to have another look at another process rather than the ones we talked about in session 3. But you can, if you have the time, have a look at it. Not required. Wait till we get to session 8 if you wish. In the paper today, what else do you want to talk about? Mandatory rights, I see here, is popping up again on mandatory gun sentences. And the Harper government has made it mandatory that if you or I have an unofficial gun around the house that hasn't been duly registered, it's a mandatory 3-year jail sentence at the discretion of prosecutors. Now, the sky can be blue, and the prosecutor says 3 years, and the sky can be blue, and the prosecutor says, Terry, I understand, not a problem. And the Supreme Court came out by a 6-3 ruling and says that's cruel and unusual punishment, and struck it down. So the mandatory gun sentences in Canada are no longer there. But it's a symptom of a bigger issue, and this is this trajectory, growth and trajectory between the folks in the country and I'm saying in Alberta and northern BC and other places. Weapons are a fact of life. You need them for rodent control and animal eating your stuff. The RCMP aren't close, so there's nothing wrong with having a weapon of some sort close by in the house. Of course, when you go to the big cities of Toronto and Ottawa and places like that, well, they shudder with horror that you'd even have a rifle or a gun around the house. But there's this just difference in the ethics and the culture of what's expected. So this week we might talk a little bit about this stretch between the 2 different worlds, the two divides of rural Canada versus urban Canada, and gun control and gun control legislation, and good or bad thing, and do we need it? And I've often said that man is born free, yet everywhere he's in chains, And this is just another example of why we do this. When I grew up, we all had, I mean, how many out there watching me didn't have a BB gun? We all had BB guns and thought nothing of it. Today, you walk down the street with a BB gun and the SWAT teams will be knocking you to the ground. The whole world has shifted, and I'm not sure in a good way, but we can talk a bit about that maybe this week. India, we have the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi is here, and he's doing closer collaboration with Canada, which is a good thing. India, you know, is a powerful nation. It's growing, has a blue water navy. It's 1.2 billion people. Canada is blessed with a strong Indo-Canadian community, and that Indo-Canadian community, as I've said to you, is a competitive advantage because it gives us that Rolodex, that input in the sense of the cultures and the language and how India operates. We have those Canadians here that we can partner with to exploit the opportunities that it presents. So it's all a good thing, particularly at a time that we have to consciously decouple a little bit from America and this economic interdependence that we have for obvious reasons of protectionism and those things we've talked about. It's time to establish these new trade links, although it takes a little more work than just simply trading with the north-south border. But I'm pleased to see it happening. But here what we have is this uranium supply deal of hundreds of millions of dollars from Camco Corporation, which is based in Saskatchewan. So it's going to be a wonderful boom economically for Saskatchewan. We're shipping uranium and possibly hardware as well to India, and all that for nuclear power seems to make a lot of sense. Doesn't take much though to move it into sort of weapons grade, and then of course you get into, if India and Pakistan, why not their neighbor Iran, or just next door neighbor Iran? And so we have this tension back to those issues again. But anyway, he's here. The other thing he's doing, which is what I struck was interest, was there's a Patrick Brown, a backbencher MP in Ontario, who for the last 15 years has been a friend of Narendra, the Prime Minister, and they've gotten along well. And now with the corruption and problems in India, Modi has got a very big following. He's doing the right things in India and revitalizing India and its economy and those things. And so he comes to Canada and he's laid on hands on Brown because two of them have been friends. In fact, he calls him his brother. And so this backbencher is the unofficial guide for the Prime Minister across Canada. But interestingly enough, this 37-year-old has decided he's going to make a run to be the leader of the Conservative Party in Ontario. And so what we have here is a very strong Indo-Canadian following with the blessings of the Prime Minister of India, possibly shaping who the next Prime Minister, or who the next Premier will be of Ontario. And so we can talk here maybe of the importance of, I mean, you'll have your MBA, and lots of people have MBAs, but we've said what will differentiate you is this critical thinking, that this strategist perspective, and also your Rolodex, your network of who you know. And it's clear here that he's simply a backbencher, but he knows the Prime Minister, and he's levering that to his advantage. And you should be doing the same thing. You should be expanding your Rolodex and people that you know to enhance how fast you're going to move through the corporate ladder. Interesting he's doing that. I guess the other thing might come out of that, I can recall back at the time of the FLQ crisis in Canada, shortly thereafter, we had de Gaulle coming to Canada talking about Quebec Libre in the sense of free Quebec. And it just flew in the face of all Canadians, particularly at the time we had this tension of Quebec wanting to secede from Canada. And here we have a foreign leader that Canada did a lot to make sure he could be a foreign leader during World War II, telling us how to run Canada. And is the Indian Prime Minister doing the same thing to Ontario? A question to talk about. What else is in the paper? Let's, my little arthritic fingers, turn the page here. We've had some great discussions this week, things I've enjoyed reading about. We talked about this in the last week, this idea of climate change. Well, there's another article in here today that apparently there was an interprovincial climate conference to discuss this issue and what to do, and we're getting down to timelines to adopt or reject. And interesting enough, about half the provinces didn't bother attending. They're not in a rush to do this, and places like Alberta, Saskatchewan's one of the largest offenders in Canada. But Canada by itself is not a big offender. We only present, I think it's 2% of the world's carbon dioxide levels, just 2%, even though we're the second largest landmass. And so we're not the major offenders. Places like India and places like China with coal-fired generators are the prime villains in this thing. But Having said that, it doesn't seem to have a big appetite in Canada. And for one of the reasons, we talked again on one of the sites, that if we just took a simple thing like gas and decided that it's treated like a commodity, like salt and sugar, gas is gas. But if we adopt and Mexico doesn't adopt, then the price per unit of our gas being bought by Americans will be 50 cents more per unit. And so what gas will the Americans buy at 50 cents a unit cheaper? And so we have to make sure all play or none play, because it's going to have some serious repercussions on Canada, Canada's economy, and certainly the gas and oil industry in Canada right now is on the ropes. The last thing you want to do is put another chain on them and make it 50 cents more a unit to ship this stuff because of the cap and anyway, we can look at that. 200 troops to the Ukraine early as June. And I think the ambassador from Russia the other day was asked about that, and he didn't seem overly impressed that 200 was going to make a big difference in it. But he said, you're obviously doing it to impress the Americans, and obviously we are. But 200 troops to the Ukraine, and I have to say, I wish the boys well. They'd draw the Queen's shilling on the drumhead, as they say, and so we wish them well on a safe trip on that. But then at the end of the day, we scratch our heads for a minute and ask, is it a just thing? Should we actually be there? And so, again, I don't think we've had those discussions yet. Another question over here, that the Liberal staffers, about 15 Liberal staffers, as campaign advisors and things to the former Prime Minister or Premier of Ontario, have joined what is called the beer store that lobbies the government on behalf of foreign corporations. And so it's the U.S.-based Molson Coors and Belgium AB and Sapporo, Japan, who bought out the Sleeman's case, will be doing. The beer stores in Ontario are all owned by foreign companies. And it goes on here to say that because they have this monopoly on the beer sales in Ontario, they make about another $400 billion profit that these foreign national companies would not get if it was just open to free trade and government wasn't interfering. You could just buy it on the regular store; it would be cheaper. And so, a good topic out of this, it seems to me, is the idea of the role of lobbyists, good or bad thing, particularly when they come from the Premier's office to go directly into this and come back and lobby the colleagues. Is that a safe thing today? The idea of campaign contributions is a big thing. How much influence does it when these large brewery companies make large campaign contributions to people running in elections? We could look at that for a few minutes today. Certainly an issue. We have an election coming up in Canada, probably in the fall, the way it's unfolding, and I see Trudeau quashes the idea of a coalition with Mulcair, and we should be watching for that coming up, the idea that certainly, we've talked in this class, our sense is that there's nowhere in the Constitution there's provision for the Prime Minister's office to have the authority that it has. If you look through our Constitution, ranging from the Magna Carta to the stare decisis, the precedent over time, to the Treaty of Westminster, the Bill of Rights under Diefenbaker, the Charter of Rights with Trudeau, the British North American Act, 1867, all those together make up Canada's Constitution. It's a collective of different papers that make our Constitution. But nowhere in those papers does it say the Prime Minister has this dictatorial authority that we see out of the Prime Minister's office. And so as long as he has a majority, or she has the majority in the Prime Minister's office, they can do what they want. They're stronger than the American president. And that's what we have here. Harper's got his majority. He just tramples over. We don't have these discussions about the Muslims and the Israelis, what was said down there. We don't have any discussion about going into Syria. We don't have any great discussion about the gun control and stronger on crime legislation, notwithstanding that there's been 20% less murders since I think 1977 to today. It's going down, but the incarceration levels are going up, and I think we talked a bit about that last week, that we as decision makers have to look at that. In any event, we see the election coming up, and as a strategy to defeat Harper, Mulcair is suggesting let's get together as a coalition, or be prepared to have a coalition if Harper gets in again, because there's some sense that Harper, with got a 7 or 8 seat majority, is going to lose that. And I'm one of those that believe he continues on this trend, certainly one of my vote. But as he comes down, possibly a coalition could take this over. But the danger is it appears that Trudeau and Mulcair, a little bit like oil and water, they're not coming together. Just a difference in philosophy of the government should run. And so let's watch for that and see. It may be that Harper can keep them divided, in which case he may slip in again. But it's time to look at that, because the government we get will make a difference on your business and how you craft your strategies. Same thing in the States. I see here Hillary is now wooing Iowa down there, and trying to be a person of the people. We're not into the foreign affairs when she was Secretary of State so much as to talk about improving the middle class and the downtrodden seems to be her thrust. And it's interesting coming from somebody who's a multimillionaire that she's talking about the top 10% contributing. But it's worth looking at. But Donald Trump, by the way, is making a push at this too, and I always have tongue in cheek for the Donald, and I enjoy watching him. He's very strident and an opinionated individual, but fun. We'll watch Trump. There's some announcement maybe as early as next week, or it may just be some more statements by him, but it'll be fun to watch. What else is in our paper? No, that's it for that. Oh my, this is sad. In Toronto, in Ontario, we've had this hemorrhaging of the car industry, notwithstanding all the bailouts we've talked about, the billions of dollars of bailouts and the promises and undertakings about staying here and doing the right thing. There's been this hemorrhaging of the automobile industry out of Ontario and to some extent of America going to Mexico. And here's just another report. It's $1 billion new plant going to be set up in Mexico, and it's Toyota Motors Canada is going to shift its Corolla compact cars from Cambridge, Ontario to this new factory in Mexico. It's just one more indicator, one more symptom that Canada as a whole is not paying attention to be productive. We're not putting in place the ground fertile so we can have a productive nation. We're not paying attention to Porters. We talk again about the advanced factor endowments and what makes nations competitive. And our taxes are so high, our red tape is so heavy, our environmental requirements are so stringent that we're driving business out of this country. And certainly worth a discussion. I could be wrong on this, but it's just another indicator that we're losing. In this case, it's 3,000 jobs are going to leave this Cambridge, Ontario, and go set up in Mexico. These are good-paying jobs. They're not the jobs that are being reported in our unemployment stats that we're making more jobs. The jobs we're making are the entry-level jobs, or the McDonald's burger flipping type jobs where they count as a job. These are blue-collar, good-paying jobs. The average worker in Ontario, with the time of the bailout, when we looked at it with all-in additional costs, it was $79 an hour. Big numbers. But we're no longer productive with the Mexican worker and the supports that they get. And so it's hemorrhaging, it's going down there, and we have to look, can we do more about this, or else we're going to be in very serious situations. I see the dollar is up to 80 cents. We talked a bit about possibly in anticipation of the General Motors sale, the American dollar is converting into Canadian dollars, demand for Canadian dollars driving up the dollar. But also Iran made a statement yesterday, which I found interesting, suggesting that OPEC nations drop their production levels by 5%. It's interesting because, as you know, Saudi and Iran are clashing on a number of fronts over there, and I don't know how that's going to play out, if they're even going to be listened to, but at least they made the statement, and I think that too is a catalyst to drive up the oil prices. If you can somehow reduce the demand and supply, reduce the supply down a little bit, that would be good for the price of oil to send it up. If you can't do that, then the price of oil is going to come down. And if Iran comes in, we've talked about an additional 1 million barrels of oil can come into the system. It'll take a little while to ramp up and get everything working, but that new 1 million barrels will hit, and that will be well over the tipping point of 94 million barrels a day coming into the system. So that's happening. Saskatchewan is becoming the world's protein basket. We often refer to Canada as the bread basket and Saskatchewan as the bread basket, but no, it's not. It's now going to be called the protein basket because it's shifting from grains into lentils and peas and beans to feed the Indian population. And so that's a very powerful thing. And it shows the right thing to do. Rather than ask for handouts and bailouts, if it can't make it in wheat, we should move our resources and move it into something else. Well, they've moved it properly into lentils. There's a demand for that, and they're talking about great jobs. They think that it's going to, they're going to put over 7.5 million acres into this in the next year. That's a lot of new crops, a new crop cash cow for the farmers. My hat's off to the president out there, to the premier out there to do this. Well done. What else is on? Pipeline delays lead to boom in oil storage. So Carrier Energy Corp, Kinder Morgan, Gibson Energy, TransCanada Corp, Enbridge are all starting now to throw money at building holding tanks, large holding tanks to hold a large quantity of oil, because as we've said in this class, we're starting to bulk out. There's no place to put this. So they recognize that, and that I think you can conclude from that with a little reflective thought that they don't think this oil thing is going to be over quickly. Otherwise, they'd just see it through. But they're actually going to build this, and it'll take a while to get on stream. But they want some place to store it. And that tells me to believe that they still think that the price of oil is not bouncing back up to $70, $80 anytime soon. And so they're trying to maximize and put it aside. CanJet, this is an airline owned by IMF, Ken Rowe in Halifax. It's mass layoffs, letting the bulk of the people off, and it'll impact IMF, I suspect, as it's the parent company for CanJet out of Halifax. Oh, Uber came up with a nice move. Uber, as you know, a wonderful idea about taxi, competing with taxis. A lot of pushback from provinces and motor vehicle branch authorities say you can't do that because we sell and control taxi licenses and you're playing in our field. And so in some places they have to ratchet down and get out of the area. In other places they still work. But one place they work is in the States and San Francisco. And so they have come up with Loblaws. And so they're partnering with Loblaws to do what Thrifty does here, and that's you can call in your order or do your ordering online, and then simply get an Uber cab and go and pick up your basket. It'll be waiting for you at the door to save some time for shopping. And they have a special rate. I think it's a complete turnaround is $30 from your home to there, pick it up and back. For $30 you can go pick up your groceries. And so it's another use for Uber, but it's another way that the Internet of Things is being disruptive to the traditional business models of the conventional taxi service has been around for many years. And then, of course, the discussion on that is, should we try to retain the old business models, or should we make them work for us, find a way around it? Here's another one. I mean, Shaw Communications had a significant drop in profit in the second quarter as subscribers are hemorrhaging, leaving the telecom company. And it's all about the government stepping in and influencing the amount of notice they have to give and penalties on phone sets. But they've lost 3,600 cable television customers, 36,000 cable television customers, 12,000 landline subscribers, 1,800 internet customers, et cetera, all in this 30 days. It's hemorrhaging bad, and they've got to do something about it. And so they're madly trying to find a new strategy to come around that. And one of our colleagues works for TELUS, and I was quite taken by the strategy and the proactiveness, the stance that TELUS is doing because they're meeting with the same sort of pressures on how to meet this new Internet of Things and how the movies are going to be delivered and that technology. And I guess what I got out of it is the importance of being proactive and not reactive, but actually anticipate and get out in front of the market. And it sounds like Shaw is struggling a little bit. TELUS seems to be very proactive in getting out in front of it. Worthwhile. I was interested in reading the posting. Oh, we had I don't know if we mentioned it last week or not, but with the backup of oil rigs and things in our harbor, particularly Vancouver. In fact, there's a picture here: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's a picture of 10 oil tankers almost bumper to bumper in Vancouver Harbor off English Bay, waiting to load up and get the fuel. But we had an oil spill, and it wasn't a big oil spill, thank goodness, but it's right off marvelous English Bay beaches, and it's the core of downtown, and it would be absolutely sickening if that got tarred in black as they did with the British Petroleum down off in the Gulf. But fortunately it was a small one, but it was a test for a Canadian Coast Guard and their system to put the booms out and stop it. And the government's calling it a world-class response, but other politicians are looking at it and say it was quite a number of hours before it was taken care of. And part of that may be that the headquarters for the Coast Guard is here in Victoria. And of course, Victoria is quite a boat run to get to Vancouver, but all the shipping, most of the shipping comes out of Vancouver. That's where the oil tankers are lined up, and the bunkers are crude oil is being held. But stuff seems to move, and the ships seem to move out of Esquimalt. And I'm just wondering if that has to be looked at. It doesn't seem, it seems to me that that stuff should be in situ, in Vancouver. But we can look a little bit about the response time. We could look a bit about oil spills and the danger, particularly in Kitimat and those areas where we now have this northern pipeline being proposed and LNG plants. We've got a lot of fuel that's going to be moving off our coast back and forth to China. And keep in mind that off BC, we have very rich. We have both gas and oil reserves there in large quantities, but we've not tapped it. The federal government have said, no, you can't have it because of the concerns for oil disasters of that nature. And there's a lot of merit to that argument. But we are a very rich province, but we just can't get at it because of the regulations. But we are going to have more shipping going out of Kitimat and places like that. And so the question becomes, oil response teams, do we do enough in that thing? And do we have the insurance policies in place? Oh, this is more lobbyists. We talked earlier about the lobbyists and the problems with the beer in Ontario. But it's not just Ontario. It says here the Liberal government sold valuable Crown land in Metro Vancouver. That's right within, if you know the prices of homes in Vancouver, you get a sense. And so they sold for $85 million, 150 hectares. A hectare is about 2.2 acres. So that's about 350 acres in Vancouver for $85 million. But the appraisals that went through it appraised it for $128 million. And so the opposition parties, et cetera, jumping up and down as it's come to light that the individual who bought it was had given $228,000 to the Liberal Party individually in support of the last election as a gift. And so there's certainly smoke here that should be looked at, and they are looking at it. Just why would something be given away $43 million cheaper? And right away they're saying they want to build. If I look at it, one of the parcels of land went for $100,000, and it was appraised for $5.6 million in Vancouver. So there's a lot here to be looked at, but they're saying right away one of the lots they're going to put 800 units of housing we built on the Burke Mountain property. Well, anyway, there's a lot there going on there, but again, it brings back to this question of lobbyists and the role of lobbyists and donations to parties, the danger that can be implied from that. We should need to look at this a bit. This made me smile. Egging on scufflaws. And what it's all about is Rent the Chicken. And you can now, a little bit of humor in this, you can now keep hens, and so there's this company out of Pennsylvania's got together, and for $375, you can rent 2 hens. They will provide you the portable coop, food, supplies, and laying hens for the summer months. And then you turn them back in October, and you've had the benefit of the eggs and things, and to see if you like being in the hen business. And increasingly with Victory Gardens, things we've been talking about, I certainly am one. We're considering putting 3 chickens in our backyard. And I looked at this and I said, what a nice, smart idea. But it's an idea of monitoring the ecosystem. They said there was a need. There's more people thinking of backyard chickens. And can I test the water first? And so they're filling that need. It's just what we should be doing in strategy, and they've done it. And they say people often don't turn them back in, even though you can, because they become pets. But what do you think of the Rent the Chicken program? To me, it looks like a lot of fun. Well, and I enjoy, one of my favorite singers is a guy called Percy Sledge, 1966, probably before a lot of you were born. And he sang, "When a Man Loves a Woman." It's a very slow soul ballad. I loved it. And certainly lost. Didn't do much else in his life, but he had one song, and that was his 15 Minutes of Fame. It was a gorgeous song. And I think at the end of the session, we're going to treat you to a little of that if Lonnie Castle can look it up somewhere. And I guess that does bring me to the end of the session, folks. Hope you've enjoyed today. Hope you're enjoying the sessions. If you have any problems, give me a call on the weekend or during the week. Always pleased to hear from you. I'm enjoying the course. I'm having a lot of fun with it. Hope you are. Bye-bye now. Dave, give me a little Percy Sledge on the way out. Thank you.